Almos. Almos, also Almos or Almus c. 820 c. 895, was, according to the uniform account of Hungarian chronicles, the first head of the loose federation of the Hungarian tribes from around 850. Whether he was the sacred ruler kende of the Hungarians or the military leader gyula is subject to scholarly debate. According to Constantine Porphyrogenitus, he accepted the Khazar khagan suzerainty in the first decade of his reign, but the Hungarians acted independently of the Khazars from around 860. The 14th century Illuminated Chronicle narrates that he was murdered in Transylvania at the beginning of the Hungarian conquest of the Carpathian Basin around 895. Ancestry. Anonymous, the unknown author of the Gesta Hungarorum who wrote his historical romance around 1200 or 1210, states that Almos descended from the line of Attila the Hun. A late 13th century chronicler, Simon of Khazar, wrote that Almos was of the Chevral kindred. He also wrote Attila the Hun's banner, which bore the image of the bird the Hungarians called Tyrol, identified as either a falcon or a hawk. A bird has an important role in the legend about Almos's birth, which was preserved both by the Gesta Hungarorum and by the Illuminated Chronicle. The legend says that Almos's mother, already pregnant with him, dreamed of a bird of prey which had the likeness of a hawk impregnating her. This story has close analogies in the nomadic, steppe environment. Notably, in the secret history of the Mongols, it is reported that Genghis Khan's mother-in-law had a dream that a white falcon holding the sun and the moon its claws the Tyrol was often depicted as the sun flew down from the sky and lit on her hand, thus predicting the birth of a child and of the royal dynasty. This is due to the fact that falcons were associated with fertility. Falcons populate many legends of the foundation of dynasties and empires. They are popular in the traditions and symbolism of the steppe people and are not exclusive or originary of any specific ethnic group living therein. Historians Gyula Christo and Victor Spinai wrote that this story initially narrated the origin of Almos's family from a totemic ancestor. According to the Gesta Hungarorum, Almos was born to the Scythian leader Ujic and Nemes, a daughter of Prince Jubilian. Christo wrote that her name, containing the old Hungarian word for mother may have been invented by Anonymous. On the other hand, Anonymous referred to Almos's wife as the daughter of a certain most noble prince of Scythia. The name of Almos's father is uncertain because the Hungarian chronicles preserved it in two variants. Anonymous states that Ujic was his name, but the 14th century Illuminated Chronicle says that Alod himself, the son of Ujic, was Almos's father. Christo says that both names may have been the chronicler's inventions, since Ujic's name derives from the ancient Hungarian Uji saint, holy word, and Alod's name simply refers to an ancestor. Anonymous writes that Ujic married Nemes in 819. If this date is correct, Almos was born around 820. Anonymous makes a connection between the name of Almos and the Hungarian word for dream alarm, which is perhaps the most cited origin for the name. In modern Hungarian, the name means sleepy, drowsy. However, the given name Almos likely derives from alarm as mentioned, dream, itself the root of Almos, drowsy. Derivation from a word meaning dream would better fit the legend surrounding his birth, narrating his mother's dream. The word alarm has Proto-Finno-Ugric root, from asterisk edema sleeping, dream. Cognates include Eastern Mary or Emo Omer and Mansi, Cyrillic Clitophori Flem Ulam, dream. Even Christo granted that the etymology of Almos' name is possible in the way described by the anonymous notary, that is, the name Almos could be derived from the Hungarian word alam almu, dream. More skeptical authors have still remarked that the etymology relating the name to the Hungarian common noun alam, dream, cannot be rejected as readily. Historians Rozrana Tas and Victor Spinai argued that his name is of Turkic origin. However, Spinai himself responded to the suggestion of a Turkic origin of the individual based on the Turkic etymology of his name by saying that a name's etymology does not always reflect its bearer's ethnicity. 10% of words in modern Hungarian are of Turkic origin who made a consistent genetic and cultural contribution to the Magyars. In the 19th century, a Turkic, rather than Uralic origin for Hungarian was proposed, due to the large and varied layer of loans and all the influences absorbed by Hungarians after several centuries of cohabitation. The Magyars' historical social structure itself is said to be of Turkic origin. The words Hungarian and Hun, too, are considered of Turkic origin. Many Hungarian names, and also animal and plant names, are of Turkic origin, and the majority of Hungarian tribal names were of Turkic origin. However, the Magyars are not a Turkic people. According to the Turkic theory, the name meant the bought one in Turkic. Linguist Bela Kalman wrote that the name Almos, however, is not of Turkic origin, but the Hungarian secondary formation of the Hungarian word of Finno-Ugric origin alarm, meaning that which is dreamt about. Almos, born to a Hungarian prince Nemes, the mother of all ethnic Hungarians, led his people to the conquest of the Carpathian Basin after they were attacked by the Turkic Pechenegs. He was chosen as leader of the Magos by the latter's chieftains, who had initially appointed Lede as their permanent leader. The ethnic Hungarians became known after Almos tribe, which proved the strongest of the 7 Hungarian tribes. Reign. Almos, according to Gesta Hungarorum, was freely elected by the heads of the 7 Hungarian tribes as their leader and master. Anonymous adds that to ratify Almos's election, the 7 chiefs swore an oath confirmed in pagan manner with their own blood spilled in a single vessel. Anonymous says that they also adopted the basic principles of the government, including the hereditary right of Almos's offspring to his office and the right of his elector's descendant to have a seat in the Prince's Council. According to author Paul Engel, this report of the treaty by blood, which reflects its author's political philosophy rather than actual events, was often presented by Hungarian historians as the very first manifestation of modern parliamentary thinking in Europe up until 1945. In a sharply contrasting narrative from around 950, the Byzantine Emperor Constantine Porphyrogenitus states that instead of Almos, his son Arpad was the first supreme head of the Hungarian tribes, and that Arpad's election was initiated by the Khazar khagan. The emperor says the khagan sent an envoy to the voivodes heads of the Hungarian tribes after they had been forced by the Pechenegs to leave their dwelling places near the Khazar khaganate and to settle in a new territory called Etelköz. The khagan was planning to appoint one of the voivodes named Levedi to lead the Hungarian tribes to represent the khagan's interests. Although Levedi refused the khagan's offer, he proposed one of his peers, Almos or Almos's son Arpad, to the proposed new position. The khagan accepted Levedi's offer. Upon his initiative, the Hungarians elected their first prince, but they preferred Arpad to his father. The work of Constantine VII, who referred to Magyars as Turks. Gyula Christo and many other historians refute Porphyrogenitus' report of the omission of Almos in favour of his son, saying that the Jural legend connected to Almos' birth proves his role as the forefather of his dynasty. These historians say that the emperor's account is based on a report by one of Arpad's descendants named Tamaxu, who emphasized by this report of Arpad's election that only those descending from Arpad were suitable to lead the Hungarians. Other children of Almos were excluded. And Rosronatas says that Constantine Porphyrogenitus preserved the memory of a coup d'état organized against the Vedican by Almos gyula, who had his own son Arpad elected as sacred ruler in his opponent's place. A late 9th century Central Asian scholar, Abu Abdullah al-Jayhani, whose works were partially preserved in Ibn Rushd's and other Muslim authors' books, mentions the existence of these 2 high offices among the Hungarians. He describes the kende as the Hungarian sacred ruler and the gyula as their military commander. Historians still debate which of the 2 offices was held by Almos. Christo says that Almos stood at the head of the Hungarian tribal confederation from around 850. Porphyrogenitus' narration says that he initially accepted the khagan's suzerainty. The Hungarians apparently achieved their independence around 860, since the earliest reports on their plundering raids in Central Europe were recorded thereafter. The Annals of Street Burton mentions their incursion into Louis the German's realm in 862. 3 tribes seceding from the Khazar khaganate, together known by Porphyrogenitus as Khazars, also joined with the Hungarians in the 860s or 870s. Spina says that the memory of their arrival was preserved by Anonymous, who mentions the 7 dukes of the Cumans who subjected themselves to Prince Almos at Kiev. Anonymous writes of a war between the Hungarians and the Kievan Rus, ending with the victory of the Hungarians, who were commanded by Almos. The Russian primary chronicle refers to a Hungarian hill at Kiev in connection with the town's occupation by Oleg of Novgorod in 882. The same chronicle mentions the castle of Almo o Elyerenye de standing on the same hill. George Renadsky says that this fortress had been named after Almos, but this theory has not been widely accepted by historians. The Hungarians who lived in the westernmost parts of the Pontic steppes were occasionally hired by neighbouring powers to intervene in their wars. For instance, they invaded Moravia in alliance with Arnulf of East Francia in 892. Their intervention in a conflict between the First Bulgarian Empire and the Byzantine Empire caused a joint counter-invasion by the Bulgars and Pechenegs. The Hungarians were forced to leave the Pontic steppes and to cross the Carpathians in search of a new homeland around 895. According to the Gesta Hungarorum, the Hungarians invaded the Carpathian Basin under Almos, who appointed his son Arpad as leader and master of the Hungarian tribal federation at Anvarashhorod, Ukraine. Thereafter Anonymous does not mention Almos. In a contrasting report, the Illuminated Chronicle says that Almos could not enter Pannonia, for he was killed in Erdil, Transylvania. Christo says that the chronicle preserves the memory of Almos' sacrifice because of the catastrophic defeat of his people by the Pechenegs. If this is true, his ritual murder proves that Almos was the sacred leader of the Hungarian tribal federation. Renatas refutes this and says that if the chronicle's report is reliable, Almos became the victim of a political murder committed or initiated by his own son. Preferring the narration of the Gesta Humberorum to the report by the Illuminated Chronicle, Victor Spino states that Almos was not murdered in Transylvania, since Anonymous writes that the Hungarians bypassed this region when invading the Carpathian Basin. Finally, no source preserved the name of Almos's wife. Anonymous writes that she was the daughter of a certain most noble prince. Almos's only child known by name was Opod, who succeeded Almos after his death. The following is a family tree presenting Almos's closest relatives. Primary sources: Anonymous, Narrative of King Bela, The Deeds of the Hungarians, edited, translated and annotated by Martin Rady and Laszlo Vespremi, 2010. N. Rady, Martin, Vespremi, Laszlo Beck, John Ozem, 2010, Anonymous and Master Roger, CU Press. Constantine Porphyrogenitus, De Administrando Imperio, Greek text edited by Gyula Morgsake, English translation by Romilly J. H. Jenkins, 1967. Dumbarton Oak Centre for Byzantine Studies. Simon of Khazar, The Deeds of the Hungarians, edited and translated by Laszlo Vespremi and Frank Scher, with a study by Gino Essex, 1999. CEU Press. The Hungary Illuminated Chronicle, Chronica de Gestis Hungarorum, edited by Desert Dirksini, 1970. Corvinet Taplinger Publishing. The Russian Primary Chronicle, Laurentian text translated and edited by Samuel Hazard-Cross and Alfred P. Sherbovitz-Wetzer, 1953. Medieval Academy of America.